Before one seeks to understand another, one must first understand oneself. This is not a poetic suggestion, it is a fundamental truth. The mind, like a pool of water, only reflects clearly when it is calm. If your inner world is stirred by emotion, distraction, or ego, then every attempt to observe another person will be distorted by your own ripples. To read someone's mind, the first step is not outward, it is inward. In moments of stillness, when the breath flows slowly and the body rests without tension, something subtle begins to happen. You become aware, not of the other, not yet, but of yourself. Your thoughts slow down. The commentary in your head grows quieter. And what arises is space between stimulus and reaction. Space that allows you to see things as they are, not as your mind immediately wants them to be. Many people attempt to read others while they themselves are reacting, emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically. But reaction is noise, it clouds perception. If someone insults you and you feel anger rise, you're not reading them, you're reading your own wound. If someone withdraws and you feel abandoned, you're not perceiving their pain, you are drowning in your own. Without stillness, there is no clarity. Without clarity, there is no understanding. To cultivate this inner stillness is not complicated, but it is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires the ability to be with yourself, not constantly searching for distraction, not constantly needing validation, just being. When you sit in silence, when you breathe and simply observe, you begin to separate yourself from the chaos. You begin to see that your thoughts are just thoughts, not reality. You begin to notice the subtle reactions that happen inside you in response to the world, and instead of being caught in them, you begin to watch. And it is from this place of stillness that true observation begins. When you look at someone who is speaking, really look, without the urge to interrupt, without the need to respond, without projecting your own story onto them. You begin to see more than words. You notice the small shift in their posture when a sensitive topic arises. You feel the hesitation in their breath before they speak the truth. You observe the flicker in their eyes when something makes them uncomfortable. These details are always present, but you can only see them when your mind is not busy searching for meaning or planning your reply. Stillness allows you to absorb information from the environment like a clear lake absorbs the reflection of the moon. Nothing forced, nothing strained, just presence. And in presence, the mind becomes receptive like a sharpened blade that cuts through illusion and sees to the core of things. People think reading minds means guessing thoughts, predicting decisions, or uncovering secrets. But the truth is simpler and deeper. It means being so present, so calm within yourself, that the subtle language of another person becomes visible to you. It is not magic, it is attention. And attention is only possible when your energy is not scattered, when your inner noise has been quieted. And so, before seeking techniques to understand others, sit with yourself. Not once, but daily. Breathe deeply. Watch your thoughts without engaging them. Watch your emotions rise and fall like waves and resist the urge to surf them. Let them pass. As this practice becomes familiar, you will notice something profound. Your ability to notice others increases. You see more, not because you're trying harder, but because you are no longer getting in your own way. In the end, the quieter you become, the more you can hear, and when your mind is silent, the minds of others begin to speak. Not with words, but with presence, with gestures, with energies you were previously too distracted to notice. This is where reading begins, not with others, but with the self. In a world that constantly demands expression, speaking often becomes a habit of the untrained mind. People rush to fill the silence with opinions, explanations, defenses, noise. But in that rush to be heard, something essential is lost: the ability to truly observe. If the mind is always projecting outward, it cannot receive. If the mouth is always moving, the eyes and ears lose their sharpness. To understand others, to even come close to reading their minds, one must cultivate the art of observing more and speaking less. When you walk into a room, do you feel the atmosphere before you announce yourself? Can you sense tension in the air without anyone saying a word? Can you notice a flicker in someone's eye before they speak? These signs are always there, but most people miss them, not because they are invisible, but because they are subtle. The untrained eye is blind to subtleties, and the distracted mind overlooks the obvious. Observation begins where speech ends. In silence, your awareness expands. you begin to see details that are normally buried beneath distraction. The tremor in someone's fingers, the tightness around their smile, the way their shoulders subtly shrink when they feel insecure. Words may hide the truth, but the body never lies. And to read a person's mind, it is often not the mouth you need to pay attention to, but everything else. When someone is speaking to you, pause. Not just externally, but internally. Don't prepare your reply. Don't try to fix, to solve, to advise. Just observe. Let your attention rest on their face, their tone, their breath. Let your senses gather the information without the interference of your judgment. Most people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. If you can drop that habit, even for a moment, you begin to see what lies beneath their words. This is not a game of guessing. It is not about analyzing every movement like a detective. It is about presence. If you are fully present with someone, they will show you who they are. Not because they choose to, but because they cannot help it. Presence draws truth out of people. But presence can only be maintained in stillness, and stillness cannot coexist with constant speech. There is a power in simply watching. It teaches you patience. It teaches you humility. You begin to realize that people reveal themselves in layers, and those layers unfold in their own time. If you push, you get performance. If you wait, you get essence. But waiting requires restraint. It requires you to trust that what you need to know will come, not through interrogation, but through observation. And slowly, you begin to notice the language that exists beyond words. A person may say they are fine, but the way they avert their gaze says otherwise. They may say they agree, but the tightening of their jaw speaks a different truth. They may laugh, but their eyes carry sadness. These contradictions are not deceptions. They are glimpses into the real mind, the one that hasn't yet learned to hide behind practiced phrases. In many conversations, you will find that the most important things are not said aloud. They are hinted, they are implied, they are masked. To perceive them requires an alert mind that is not clouded by assumptions or distracted by its own desire to speak. That is why the discipline of saying less is not about being passive. It is about being wise. It is a way of gathering what others miss. Some people will speak endlessly and still reveal nothing. Others will remain quiet and yet say everything through how they carry themselves. To read minds, you must learn to read silence, to read tension, to read avoidance, to read the tiny inconsistencies between word and gesture. That is the language of truth. So when you sit with someone, be there fully. Observe how they move, when they hesitate, when they light up, when they retreat. Watch how they speak to others when they don't know you are watching. Observe how they respond to pressure, how they handle praise. All of these are windows into their inner world. Speak only when your words add something essential. Until then, observe. Because in the silence, people tell their stories, not with their voice, but with their being. And only the quiet mind has the sensitivity to hear it. Listening is often mistaken as a function of the ears. But to truly listen, to listen in a way that allows you to sense what a person is not saying, requires something deeper. Before, like, the ears hear sounds, but the heart and the body hear what lies beneath them. If you want to understand someone, if you wish to glimpse the workings of their mind, you must learn to listen beyond words. Words are shaped by culture, habit, defense mechanisms. People speak from filters. What they want you to hear, what they think they should say, what they believe will protect them. But the truth of their mind is not always in the words themselves. It is in how those words are spoken. It is in the pause between sentences. Before, like, in the tremble just before they respond, in the way their breath shortens when a certain subject arises. When you listen only to what is said, you catch the surface. When you listen to everything around the words, you catch the truth. This kind of listening requires a different state. You are not waiting to talk. You are not comparing what they say to your own experience. You are not judging, fixing, advising. You are simply present as if your whole body were an ear. It's a different quality of attention. Still alert without effort. When someone feels that kind of attention from you, they reveal more. Not because they intend to, but because your presence allows it. Tone is the first layer. Two people may say the same phrase, "I'm fine," but their tone reveals everything. One may sound sharp, defensive, the other hollow and resigned. In both cases, the words are the same, but the inner experience is not. When you attune your listening to tone, You begin to hear emotion underneath language, anxiety disguised as politeness, irritation masked by a smile, uncertainty wrapped in confidence. Then there is rhythm. How someone speaks, how fast, how slow, how uneven. A fast, scattered rhythm might suggest nervousness. Long pauses may signal inner conflict. When a person talks about something painful, notice how their pace changes. When they speak of something joyful, their breath expands. These are not accidents. The body speaks when the mind hides. There is also volume. Some people speak louder not because they are confident, but because they fear not being heard. Others speak softly not from humility, but from the belief that they don't deserve space. Again, words are easy to control, but the body betrays what the mind protects. And then, most important of all, there is silence. What is not said often carries more weight than what is. A person may avoid a topic repeatedly. That avoidance is a message. They may leave something out every time they tell a story. That gap is a clue. To notice this, you must be deeply present, not scanning for flaws or missing pieces, but simply attuned. Before like feeling a change in the wind, you sense the shift without needing to name it. Sometimes the truth comes through the eyes, not the voice. When the words say one thing, but the gaze drifts away or hardens, take note. The body and face are constantly broadcasting. You only need to be still enough, quiet enough to receive. This kind of listening is a practice. It deepens with time. At first, you may only catch moments. A hesitation here, a sigh there. But as your awareness sharpens, before you begin to see the whole conversation unfold not just in words, but in gesture, expression, breath, energy. And you begin to realize that most people are always telling the truth, just not with their words. To listen beyond words, you must also listen to your own response. How do you feel when someone is speaking? What arises in you? Sometimes your body picks up on what your mind cannot process. You feel tired around someone who drains energy, or tense around someone hiding anger. This too is listening, through sensation rather than sound. So the next time you are with someone, listen fully. Not only to their voice, but to the space around their words. Listen with your eyes, with your skin, with your stillness. People are speaking all the time, in what they say and in everything they do not. If your attention is deep enough, you will hear both. And when you do, you begin to read not just the conversation, but the mind behind it. It is easy to assume that reading others begins with them. That to understand a person's mind, we must look outward, study their behavior, their gestures, their expressions. But in truth, the mind we must study first is our own. Because when you attempt to read someone through a lens that is clouded by unresolved emotions, judgments, or inner noise, what you see is not their truth, but your projection. You cannot read someone clearly if you are reacting unconsciously to what they evoke in you. Every person you meet is like a mirror. They reflect something back at you. But whether you see their reflection or your own distortion depends entirely on your self-awareness. If someone speaks sharply and you feel anger rise, stop. Is it their aggression you are sensing, or is it an old wound inside you that reacts to being dismissed? If someone grows distant and you feel abandoned, pause. Is their withdrawal truly about you, or is it stirring something from your past? Without knowing yourself, it is impossible to know others. Understanding your own emotions is not a step in this process. It is the foundation. Before you can perceive others, you must be honest with what you carry within. Do you crave approval? Then you will hear criticism even where there is none. Do you fear rejection? Then you will interpret silence as abandonment. Do you feel the need to control? Then every unpredictability will appear as a threat. These internal patterns distort your reading of others. Until they are seen clearly, you are not observing. You are projecting. This is why practices like reflection, journaling, and meditation are not luxuries. They are tools. They help you uncover what lives within you. They reveal your patterns. And with each pattern you become aware of, you remove a layer of distortion from the lens through which you perceive the world. There is a moment that comes after sustained self-awareness when your emotional reactions no longer pull you into stories. You feel them rise, but you do not follow. You witness them. This witnessing creates space. In that space, you begin to truly observe, not through the filter of, how does this affect me? But through the clarity of, what is actually here? That is the shift from egoic reaction to conscious perception. And then something subtle begins to change. You sit with someone, and instead of reacting to their mood, you sense it. You feel tension in their words, but you do not absorb it. You notice sadness in their silence, but you do not rush to fix it. You are able to sit with what is, not because you are indifferent, but because you are steady. Your emotions no longer color the entire picture. They inform you, but they do not control you. This emotional steadiness is what allows you to read people with depth and accuracy. Because when your own mirror is clean, free from the dust of assumption, attachment, or fear, it reflects the other person clearly. You feel what they feel, but you are not overwhelmed by it. You sense their truth, even when they cannot speak it, not because you are trying to be insightful, but because you are not in the way. To understand someone else's mind, you must become familiar with your own triggers. You must learn the difference between intuition and insecurity, between a true signal and an old scar. This discernment grows over time. You begin to recognize when a reaction is yours to hold and when it is theirs to carry. This separation is essential, not to create distance, but to see clearly. Reading people is not about control. It is not about manipulation. It is about connection. And connection begins with the ability to be present, fully, honestly, without needing the moment to be different. That level of presence is only possible when your emotions have been witnessed, held, and understood. So begin each encounter not by watching the other, but by watching yourself. What arises when they speak? What does your body feel? What thoughts appear? This awareness is your compass. It guides you toward understanding, not by forcing insight, but by removing distortion. The clearer your inner world, the more accurately you perceive the outer one. And when your perception becomes clean, the mind of the other is not a mystery. It is a reflection. In the quiet work of understanding others, it is tempting to focus on isolated moments, a phrase spoken, a glance cast, a decision made. But these moments, on their own, are like single puzzle pieces. If you try to form conclusions from them too quickly, you risk building a picture that isn't true. Real understanding comes not from moments, but from patterns. Because patterns do not lie, every person, over time, reveals themselves through repetition. Words may change, circumstances may shift, but the way someone reacts under pressure, the choices they make when no one is watching, the habits they return to, these are their mind in motion. These are the patterns you must observe if you want to truly know someone. It is not enough to notice how someone behaves once. The person who shows kindness when it is easy, but withholds it when tested, is not consistently kind. The one who speaks with confidence when praised, but grows defensive when challenged, reveals something deeper than what their words suggest. If you observe carefully, you begin to see that people live by rhythms, emotional, mental, behavioral. They may not be aware of them, but the patterns are there. And when you learn to watch for them, people become less confusing. Their minds unfold through their consistency. This is not about judgment. It is about discernment. Judgment labels someone quickly. This person is honest, that one is selfish. Discernment is patient. It watches. It waits. It recognizes that one act does not define a person. But it also knows that repeated acts paint a picture over time. The one who always finds blame outside themselves, even in different situations, that's a pattern. The one who always avoids discomfort, even with different people, that too is a pattern. Patterns tell you where the mind is rooted. There is a certain clarity that arises when you stop getting caught in every word someone says and begin paying attention to what they do, not once, but over time. The person who constantly interrupts others, no matter how gently they do it, is showing you their mind's rhythm. The one who consistently downplays their own needs is revealing a belief system, perhaps rooted in unworthiness. The one who often shifts the topic away from emotions may be protecting a deep vulnerability. These are not single behaviors, they are patterns. And in these patterns, the real language of the mind is spoken. To see this clearly, you must slow down. You must not rush to interpret or respond. You must allow enough time, enough space for a pattern to reveal itself. One gesture may be misleading, a second coincidental, but the third, the fourth, the fifth, they form a shape. The way someone approaches conflict again and again, avoidance, aggression, withdrawal, silence, shows you what they fear, what they protect, what they believe about connection. Words may mislead, but patterns are honest. And yet, this watching must be soft. If you observe others with a mind that seeks only to confirm its suspicions, you will find what you want, not what is true. The eye that reads clearly must be calm without agenda. It watches not to accuse but to understand. That is the difference between manipulation and wisdom. One watches to take advantage, the other watches to build clarity. Even silence, when repeated, becomes a pattern. A person may not speak of their pain, but if they consistently avoid intimacy, vulnerability, or reflection, they are telling you something. If they make excuses every time responsibility is mentioned, that, too, is part of the story. When you observe someone over time, you stop asking, what are they thinking? And start seeing, this is how they move through the world. That is where reading becomes real. Your job is not to force understanding, but to stay present enough for patterns to appear. And when they do, believe them. Not as a verdict, but as a doorway, an invitation to deeper insight. Patterns do not reveal themselves to those who are impatient. They unfold slowly like seasons. But once they become visible, they offer clarity that no single word or moment ever could. In this way, reading the mind is not a trick or a technique. It is a practice of attention. A willingness to look again, to listen longer, to remember what has been repeated. Because repetition speaks the mind's truth quietly, consistently, and without deception. There comes a point in the journey of understanding others where insight alone is not enough. You may observe, you may listen deeply, you may recognize patterns and quiet your own reactions, but if your presence lacks clarity and inner stillness, even the clearest observation can become tangled in emotion. To truly read the mind of another, your presence must become sharp, but soft, steady, yet receptive. This presence is built not by doing more, but by doing less, by calming the waves within yourself. When your mind is agitated, filled with assumptions, opinions, or inner chatter, you cannot perceive clearly. You might think you're seeing others, but what you are really seeing is your own noise projected outward. The more still you become, the more obvious this becomes. Most people do not listen to understand. They listen to the noise in their own heads and try to fit others into it. That is not reading. That is guessing. So you must return to your breath. Before entering any interaction, ask yourself, how still is my mind? How open is my attention? Because a mind that is calm does not rush to label. It does not react impulsively. It watches. It receives. And in this receiving, it begins to feel more than it analyzes. You can sense a shift in someone's tone, a subtle tension in their words, a drop in their energy, not because you're trying to analyze them, but because you are quiet enough to feel it. This quiet is powerful. It doesn't seek to control the other person. It doesn't seek to impress or to be seen as wise. It simply allows space, and in that space, people show themselves. When you are calm and grounded, people feel it. They relax, they trust. They may not even know why, but something in your presence feels safe. That safety draws out honesty, not always in words, but in energy, in body language, in expression. And the less you speak, the more they unfold. But this calmness must be cultivated. It does not come by accident. It is trained through silence, through practice, through watching your own mind when it rushes, when it clings, when it wants something. When you begin to see those inner movements for what they are, you stop being controlled by them. You become less reactive. You begin to listen without defense. And from that place, your presence starts to carry weight, not heavy, but stable. The kind of presence that people feel, even if you say nothing. Reading someone's mind is not about predicting their next move or peering into their secrets. It is about understanding where they are inside, emotionally, mentally, energetically. And to do that, your own inner field must be quiet enough to notice shifts. Imagine standing in a still pond. Even the lightest ripple becomes visible. But if the water is already turbulent, nothing can be seen. Your inner calm works the same way. It also helps you stay neutral. When someone is angry, your calm allows you to feel their anger without matching it. When someone is afraid, your steadiness becomes an anchor. You no longer get pulled into their storms. You become like a tree, rooted, still present. And from that place, you can see not only what is said, but what is not. You can sense what lies underneath. Unspoken pain, unacknowledged truth, hidden longing. These things are not seen with sharp eyes, they are felt with a calm heart. And sometimes, when you are fully present and silent, people begin to reveal their minds in ways even they were not aware of. A word slips out, a story changes, a breath catches. Not because you interrogated them, but because your presence gave them space. This kind of presence doesn't push, it invites. And the invitation is simple: be yourself without fear. From that place, truth rises. So if you want to read someone clearly, first calm yourself, breathe slowly, drop into stillness, let your body relax, your attention widen. Stop trying to figure people out, just be with them. Trust that what needs to be seen will rise. Your job is not to chase understanding, but to become so quiet that it comes to you. Stillness is not emptiness. It is full of awareness. And in that awareness, the mind of the other begins to speak. Not loudly, not obviously, but truthfully. If you are calm enough, you will hear it. Not with your ears, but with your being.